Item 6, receive an information report regarding the findings of the wireless broadband feasibility study, and this was continued from April 27th.
The long-awaited report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Kwan, and committee members. I'm Ken Gordon, Acting Director, Department of Information Technology. The main objective of the study results before you was to reach out to the community to assess the needs and readiness for deploying a wireless broadband network. This was achieved through an assessment process which gathered input from the public, local businesses, nonprofits, public agencies, and city staff. The assessment work included council, district-based focus groups, a town hall meeting, workshops, written staff, surveys, telephone calls, and emails. Community goals, requirements, and priorities were identified through this research, and design criteria for the deployment of a broadband network was established. A conceptual design was developed, which leveraged the city's existing facilities and communications infrastructure assets. The conceptual design was then used to establish the basis for financial and technical requirements. The findings of this comprehensive study has positioned the city to take advantage of public and private funding now available for deployment of broadband networks. Through public and private partnerships, the city has completed an application for a federal stimulus broadband grant. In addition, staff worked with a grassroots citizens group to complete the Google Fiber to the Home application. We are optimistic that one of these applications will help to deploy a broadband network in the City of Oakland. Mr. Stephen Blum, who is the principal consultant, is present to answer any of your questions and elaborate further on the results of the study.
So do we want just you want to do a little short summary of your main recommendations?
Yes.
It's a pretty important report. You took a long time to do it. So if we could just at least a 2 or 3 minute summary, you have 4 or 5 major recommendations.
Yes, thank you. My name is Steve Blum. I'm president of Tellus Venture Associates, the consultant for this study. Through the chair, just briefly before I get into the recommendations, I'd like to thank the members for their great support during the course of this study. We went to every council district and we heard from hundreds of Oakland residents who well represented the diversity of this city. We're grateful too for the active support provided by city staff from every department, but particularly from the Department of Information Technology. The result is a report that fully explores the broadband needs of city departments, education, outside agencies, and the community, and offers realistic technical and financial means of meeting those needs. The municipal wireless broadband field is more than 7 years old, and we've learned a lot in that time. This study draws on that experience and is a resource for planning and implementation that we hope will serve the city for years to come. In fact, the findings and recommendations in the report anticipated the requirements of the federal broadband stimulus program and provided a ready-made template for the grant applications that Mr. Gordon referenced. It's no coincidence. We're drawing from long experience and a common understanding in the policy field and in the industry field of best practices for municipal broadband at the technical, financial, and the policy levels. In terms of the findings of the report and the recommendations, we found a surprise at what I thought was a surprising degree of agreement across all portions of the city as to what is and isn't appropriate for the city to be looking at in terms of getting involved in wireless networking. There was broad agreement that a point-to-point wireless broadband system that serves specific community and institutional needs is financially and technically feasible for the City of Oakland. That came out of the financial and technical analysis that we did. We also found during that analysis that the cost of building and operating such a system can be met through identifiable cost savings, efficiency gains, and budgetary choices based on the economic value of the benefits. We also found, and this was largely the result of the focus groups, the workshops, and the town hall meetings that we conducted, is that public internet access by way of community anchor institutions is financially and technically feasible for the City of Oakland. It's universally supported by a diverse range of Oakland residents, organizations, agencies, and businesses if it's implemented in a fiscally sound manner. Enabling entrepreneurial opportunities for local businesses on a pay-as-you-go public-private partnership basis is likewise backed by the stakeholders here in the City of Oakland and supported by the financial and technical analysis. Providing wireless internet services to residences or individual consumers, though, is not financially sustainable or technically feasible for the City of Oakland, and it was opposed by nearly all the stakeholders, vast majority that we spoke with during the course of this study. They cited the widespread technical and financial issues that other cities have experienced around the country in trying to implement such systems. So those are essentially the recommendations and findings of the report, and I thank you very much.
I would just add that they did find, though, that we should invest probably on the digital divide issues in our public institutions like schools, public
Absolutely.
Housing, libraries, etc.
Schools, libraries, the community anchor
Senior
institutions,
centers.
yes, those are the types of community anchor institutions that rated highly, and schools rated highest of all.
Okay, Ms. Nadell and then Mr. Delafonte.
I had a question on the two applications that were submitted. You said you did an ARA application as well as a Google application. Do those both require $1.5 million yearly operating costs if we did get those grants?
No, they don't. The broadband grant has the broadband application required that you do an 8-year financial model, to make sure that you can prove that you can sustain such a network. So we're looking at an eight-year life for the implementation of the broadband network from the ARA money.
And so the application included the annual operating cost. Is that what you're saying?
The application did not. The application included the annual operating cost. That is correct. That is correct. Now, that operating cost will be taken care of by our private partners. That is IP Networks, who's going to build out the network. Then we project that we're going to have about a $500,000 savings per year based on what we're already paying. So that money will be used as operating costs across that 8 years.
Okay, thank you. That was my main concern, because we did pass a policy recently that we weren't going to apply for anything, even if we didn't have a way to manage it on a regular basis. So I was a little concerned that you had already gone out and applied for this, and we would be stuck with a operating bill.
Right.
But if you feel that that's covered, that'll be covered.
It's covered.
I am less upset.
Mr. Delafonte.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I just want to thank you for the work and move the item.
Okay. Okay, it's moved second. I just have a couple questions. Quickly, basically you're saying that if we use broadband and we upgrade and move towards, even internally, that the costs will stay pretty flat and neutral.
Yes.
Yes. And I have two questions. We've invested downtown in high-speed fiber optics in the past, so is there any nexus between those two systems, or do you speak to that in the report? I didn't notice.
We don't speak to that in the report. I don't think so. But in regards to the federal grant that we applied for, we've included those assets, the use of those fiber assets that are already in place.
I know that we're all guessing what the technology will be, and some people still think broadband, fiber, and wireless connection, at least for the next few years, is still the way to go. I'm just curious whether we're projecting out, because I remember in our school district we put in a lot of wire and conduit that we won't need at all now because of the wireless revolution, and so I'm wondering if we're projecting out far enough.
we're projecting out far enough because the fiber, and I think that's one of the objectives of the federal stimulus package application, was to build middle mile and build that very robust middle mile. And that middle mile network would be with fiber optics, which has a lot of capacity.
And would we still use that mostly downtown in the business section, or would we also do some around these community hubs in the other parts of the city?
We will do it throughout the city. Our plan includes connecting fiber directly to every library in the city. Just as an example, every police station, all the police stations, fire departments.
And what about the schools?
And the schools.
And the schools.
And the schools.
So that will be pretty much the whole city then?
Yes.
Okay. So the last question I had is, given this, the two grants, and should we not get either of these grants, what would be your recommendations?
The recommendation would be to go out to the marketplace with an RFP that we partially prepared to solicit proposals to build out a network in getting a solution that will comply with the financials that we came up with as being the best model. That's how we proceed.
And would any of it could possibly be funded just by our own cost savings?
Yes. We use in our financial model actually offsets, which are cost.
That's what I saw. I was trying to figure out how much that would be and how slow the progress would be if we just use offsets.
Steve, you have some of those numbers?
Certainly. In looking at the city's networking needs and what the city is currently paying and the way the city is currently doing it now, we identified roughly $700,000, $800,000 in cost savings simply from the core networking, backbone networking that the city does, and the connectivity that's being purchased for just a few locations in the city. Beyond that, there's probably about another $150,000, totaling nearly $1 million in cost savings that are available there to offset the operating costs of the system.
So we could leverage that if we had to build out on our own.
That's right. You could spend the same amount of money you're paying now and get a tremendous increase in the amount of facilities and bandwidth that you'd have available, or you could have the same capacity you have now and spend less. That would also be an option.
So I would suggest the next time you come back to us, and obviously we'll hear about some of the grants within the next 6 months or so, but that should we not get any of the grants, we should look at a modernization plan that would just use our own savings to move ahead, at least on some core areas, and that you need to bring back to us some prioritization on that. Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion to accept the report, and do we have a second? And you wanted to say something else, yes? Okay, by consensus, next item.
Okay, and we're just filing this report, right?
What do you
Or
think?
did you
You should
want
go
it to
back
go
to the
to
full council. It's a fairly significant report. Let's just put it back on consent, but forward it to the full council.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.